act like there's the Federation and by the way, I don't think this show knows the difference between the Federation and Starfleet, by the way. They use them interchangeably.
Yeah, we talked about that last time Pat and I were together.
So there's that. And then they're acting like, oh, well, the neutral they were saying the neutral zone collapsed when the Romulan sun went supernova. I'm like, okay, that makes sense because there's no more Romulan government to a degree. But then why is there just complete chaos everywhere? Like, remember in All Good Things, right? The end of the podcast. There's the future, and like the Klingons have kind of like taken over Romulan space because there was like a disease or something. Like, that's what would happen. Because, like, but where are the Klingons? Like, and the Klingon, that's its own can of worms because they're like, oh, what do we do? Do we make them look like Discovery Klingons? People are going to get mad. But if we make them look like Next Gen Klingons, people will be like, that's like us admitting we shouldn't have changed them. And so, I understand why they don't want to show them because it's a whole can of worms. But, I mean, you have to embrace, if you're going to be like all heavy politics of all these planets, you got to embrace that stuff. And, like, we see Vulcans and Romulans, and I can't tell them apart anymore. And I guess maybe that's the idea. And we see humans, and that's it. And we see random other aliens like Star Wars style. You go in a bar, but other than that, there's no other species. There's no other governments. It's like Romulus' star blew up, and it's all Starfleet's fault for not sending an armada of ships. Yeah, and then I feel like I much like I was talking about the Bruce Maddox stuff. Like, all right, you gave us a lot of information. I need more facts about what's going on. And like, did you guys not think this through? Like, I don't know. So you're right. It's very like Fenris Rangers. Okay, sure, but why and how and when? And, yeah. I don't think we're asking too much, Amy. Are we?
Yeah, no, we're not.
Okay, all right.
So we get to see. Oh, how do you say his name? Icheb.
Icheb.
Yes, Icheb. And I put in my notes, who is this guy? Because my Voyager is a little spotty. But, and I put it out on UFP Facebook page and people responded in kind. It was very nice. And they gave me a list of episodes to watch. So I did watch Imperfection. So now I know Icheb and that he sacrificed his node so that Seven would not die. Mm-hmm. Basically, right?
Yes, well, he was a teenage Borg they saved in the Delta Quadrant, and there was like a small group of Borg children who became semi-regular recurring guest stars on Voyager in the last couple years, and Seven was kind of like their surrogate mom, right? Yeah. And that's why there's a connection there, and that's why she's so affected by his brutal torture and death. So, yes. And that great? I love when they bring back established characters just to brutally kill them off, which happens twice in this episode. Not to mention, both of those actors have been recast for various reasons. You can go look up why Icheb might have been recast online. I know there's a lot of discussion about that.
I thought it was him. He looked very much like Icheb from Voyager.
I'll say, he was a teenager then, or, so it's like, oh, okay, he grew up and looking like this guy. He looks a lot more like the original actor than that guy that they had play Wesley Crusher in Hiding Q when he's like a 40-year-old man.
Oh, yeah, right? Oh.
So, the guy didn't look like... I love all the memes online where they compare, like, Will Wheaton is now the age of that guy from Hiding Q.
Yeah.
But, Manu Intiraymi was the original actor, and they recast him here. He had said some things on social media about some certain things that people found problematic, and that's its own conversation. So I'm going to guess that's why he didn't come back. Take that conversation as you will on your own time, listeners. Or not. That's a huge can of worms we don't need to open up right now. Although I will say it was for one scene and he died horribly, so maybe they could have brought him back for that one scene. But then it's like, I'm glad it wasn't like Jurati or somebody they killed like this, but I mean, still, like, this is a recurring character from Voyager who a lot of people probably liked, right? I mean, I have no like or dislike for Icheb. I thought they did some interesting things, but like on Voyager, sometimes they did some crazy things I didn't really care about. But the fact is, it's an established character, and they kill him off, and they only do it to give Seven a motivation to become a vigilante, basically. That's his only function in the story. Right. And just to have it so brutal. Like, I that's the thing about Star Trek. For the most part, right, it's never been, extremely violent. And then, of course, you say that, and then people say, well, they blew up somebody's head in conspiracy, or did you see Wrath of Khan? They put that thing in somebody's ear. I'm like, okay, those are very, very minor exceptions. But there's been a pattern of extreme violence on all the CBS All Access Star Trek shows, which make it kind of unpalatable for younger viewers. And as somebody who grew up watching Star Trek as a kid with my family, that's something that I'm like kind of annoyed by. And because I feel like I use New Battlestar Galactica as like the litmus test for this. Like, I think that's as far as you can probably push it and still have it like mature, but still accessible to younger viewers, right?
Right, yeah.
I don't think we need to see someone's eyeball pulled out of their skull in a Star Trek episode, you know? And call me old-fashioned, but that's my take on that, so.
Yeah, well, and, you know, it reminded me of when Picard was being transformed into Locutus. Like, they would show it coming this close and then stop, you know, or even in First Contact. I mean, there was some, you know, when Picard went into the holodeck to shoot him up, like, but there wasn't the blood, the guts, the gore. It was just, we knew that he was being shot and killed, but he did reach in and grab that. But, you know, in First Contact, the inside his chest. Yeah.
But again, it's like stylized science fiction violence, and that's in a PG-13 movie. You know, you wouldn't see something like that on, you know, the show itself.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And like you said, it's like a horror movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, but it's, I don't know. Like, I don't think we're being prudes. I just think we're being like, it's unnecessary. You know, that's ultimately where I stand on it. But yeah, they kill off Icheb to kind of, you know, give 7 and 9 motivation to murder this woman later in the episode. And I guess, is every episode of Picard going to start with a flashback?
I sort of hope so. I'm liking it. I really, really do. I've liked every open, I mean, minus the gore of this one, but I like that we're getting, and it's consistent. We've got 14 years ago, this happened. So we're sort of telling 2 stories at the same time, which are connected. So I really like the format of that.
I would like to see a flashback of Bruce Maddox creating these sisters from data. That would be very informative. There's 5 episodes left. Maybe we'll get that.
Maybe. But. Yeah. Okay. So one thing more before moving on to Bruce Maddox, but Bjayzl, what did you think of her? Because I watched it and then I went onto social media and I was like, whoa, what is everyone talking about? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Sort of the relationship with Bjayzl and Seven. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's an implication that Bjayzl and 709 had a relationship, a romantic
and physical and sexual.
But they don't, it's like, just say it or don't say it. They're very vague about it. And it's weird because it's like, okay, guys, if you want to say that when 709 got back to Earth, she experimented with her sexuality or something, just say it. Don't be all like, all this innuendo, like, did she tell you about our close personal relationship? And like, to your point, you didn't even pick up on that at all, it sounds like.
Yeah,
when you watched it, and then you see people talking about it, like, oh, is that what they were doing? Which, yeah, that kind of undercuts whatever they were trying to go for there to make it so vague. I mean, I think 7 of 9 was established as a straight character in Voyager. I had some love interests with men, Chakotay, terrible romance in the last episode of Voyager, but it was there, right? So, but now she's a lesbian, I guess. Okay. I don't know why they needed to change that.
Yeah, and it was so vague that I couldn't understand Bjayzl's role in it, because apparently she was undercover as a Fenris Ranger when they were together.
Yeah, and like seduced her to find out where more Borg were, and that's how she found out about Icheb.
Yeah,
which led to his gruesome, brutal death, and that's why Seven has this, this revenge, is hell bent on her revenge on this character. But you could have done all that without this, sexual relationship.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say, because they kept it mixed. I don't know what to say about it because they apparently didn't know what to say.
Yeah, they didn't know either. But yeah, I didn't even pick up on it. I just figured that, there was some trust there. I mean,
but she knows her real name, Annika.
I know. And so is that common knowledge?
Why would it not be?
Oh, right. Exactly. So I was like, So the fact that she's calling her Annika, like, it really isn't that big of a deal, because if it's common knowledge, then okay, anyone can call her Annika, you know?
And I mean, clearly, it's not a secret that she used to be a Borg. She has these implants that are on her body and very visible forever.
Exactly. Yeah. So
she's the one that got away.
Yeah.
Like,
and then 7 was, she kept pushing their relationship, like, you know, you were upset that you lost me specifically, not just any old Borg, that you lost me. And so, like, 7 was feeding into this innuendo thing, and Bjayzl was feeding into this by calling her Annika. And, you know, until I got on social media and I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's what it was. But yeah, I didn't pick up on it the first go around.
And just kind of to wrap up the 7 stuff, the chapter we're talking about here, I think Jeri Ryan was great. I think she was recognizable as 7 of 9. You know, I think in 20 years have passed, although she looks pretty much the same because she hasn't aged very much. So she looks great. Obviously, you forget that it's been 20 years since Voyager have come back from the Alpha Quadrant. She wouldn't be the same. Oh, affirmative, right? But she says enough like I am functional and stuff like that, and so there's enough of that. I can see this as the evolution of 7 of 9. I don't like how she's like every character is in a horrible, depressed place. I don't like that. But
very damaged.
Yeah, but I could see the character there. And my favorite moment of this episode, because I don't want to be all negative, right? is they had a brief moment at the end when she asked Picard, you know, when you left the collective, did you ever feel like you fully regained your humanity? He's like, no, but we try every day. And I was like, that was a good moment.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted more of that from them. And I, you know, when we first saw 7 of 9 in that trailer, you know, for Picard, they're like, oh, that makes sense. They're both ex-Borg. Surely they would have met and connected and discussed these things. But apparently they'd never met before, and they just happened to run across each other. And I feel like it's very contrived, and they could have done a lot more with that. Like, she could have been either, maybe she was Raffi, right? Maybe she was his first officer back in the day. Maybe she was a confidant that he went to join this crew. Like, there's so many organic ways that you could have bring 7 of 9 ex-Borg into Picard, and also an ex-Borg, story. And they didn't do it, and she just happened to float by and save them in the last episode. And it just feels like you could have done that way smarter and more organic. So do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I, didn't really understand why she was there, and that they didn't know each other, but they knew their names. But then they seemed to have this familiarity.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, there was too much chemistry between Jeri Ryan and Patrick Stewart for them to not have a backstory for their characters.
Because I thought that's what the end of the last episode was teasing. Like, he's like, oh, 7 of 9. She's like, you owe me a new ship, Picard. I'm like, oh, they know each other.
Exactly.
Okay, we're going to expand that later. And then in this episode, they're like, have they met before? No, I don't think so. And there was a disconnect there between the way it was played and presented and, like, the facts, I guess, of their relationship. So it's just a missed opportunity. Because you think for sure, you know, 7 of 9 and Picard would have talked in the 20 years since they got back, because how many human ex-Borgs are there?
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Okay. So the Bruce Maddox story.
Yes.
So again, there's this information, and now Bjayzl and Maddox are dead. So we're never going to know why Maddox took a loan out from Bjayzl. Do we know? What do you hypothesize? I'm thinking, okay, so if he's needing a loan to continue his work because he's left the Daystrom Institute, and when was this loan taken out? Was it taken out 14 years ago, and he created Daj and Soji with Bjayzl's money? Like, the whole thing has got me just thinking, and I just don't think that we're going to get any answers, because now both of those people are dead.
Well, yeah, and that was my point off the top. I was like, okay, good. We're you know, the mission objective of this show is we're going to meet Bruce Maddox and get some answers, right? And we did, and he's dead. It's like, and not only the questions they presented earlier, But that questions from this episode: how is he connected to any of these people? When, to your point, like, did he use their resources for these experiments? Like, where did he? It's been 14 years since he disappeared after they outlawed synthetics. Which, by the way,